What's even crazier is they come out and then beat the living piss out of your Vikings, Mackey. Jesus Christ, we're all laughing at this team, and then they come out and they're like, "Who are you laughing at?" That would be fun. And then
that was the best, most important loss of the season for my Minnesota.
Well, according
Vikings,
to Mackey's Twitter account, he's not a real fan. He's just some homer. Dude, Mackey's been getting crushed on Twitter.
What'd you say?
Murdered, and it's been fun to watch.
Before the game, I don't know if you guys are familiar with tankathon.com. I'm sure active NFL players are regulars on tankathon.com. So there's a website called Tankathon where they update you basically by the minute on the reverse standings in the NFL and draft position. And the Vikings, with this losing streak, even going into the Green Bay game, they were at one point they were picking like 22nd or 23rd, and they were always with backup quarterbacks destined to just get smoked in the first round, right? So they've kind of lose to the Bengals and lose to the Lions. They've kind of inched their way, and I put a screenshot out of Tankathon the morning of the Vikings-Packers game and said, "Hey, today is a great day for the Vikings to move up closer to the top 10 for their draft stock." And of course, it sparked a debate over, are you a bad fan if you don't root for your team to win, to get that sugar high in a 3-hour window? And I contest, no, you're a bad fan for not rooting for the long-term health and success of the franchise.
Oh,
okay?
God.
If the Vikings get Michael Penix, Penix or a franchise quarterback, you don't get to celebrate because you rooted for the Vikings to win on New Year's Eve.
You don't get to celebrate when we win because you weren't about this earlier. Dude, this is literally one of the hardest debates in the world, and I'm not even going to jump into this. All I'm going to say is that whole season, the whole Vikings season makes sense to me now after being here for so long. Like this year started really bad, and then everybody got super excited, and then all of a sudden Kirk got hurt, and it's right back to where we are every year, like week 8 with the Vikings. Like, all right. Here we go.
Dude, I think Kwesi, I mean, I'm not going on a Vikings tangent here, but I think Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is sitting there at the end of the season going, well, I kind of thought this is where you would be, but this is not at all how I thought we would get there.
No.
Right? Like, I think this is I assumed this is what this team would be, but by no stretch of the imagination did I assume this was the path in which we would take to get where we are.
Well, actually, this is a good segue here. We will come back to more dumb football questions, but since we're on the topic, we welcome
audible hot route.
Here we go.
This is an audible here. This is a check. Can. We'll get to our picks too, but Michael Hacker chimes in here via the YouTube comment section. You can always hit us up with your dumb football questions. He says, for you guys specifically, he doesn't give a rip what I think. If you could control the Vikings quarterback situation with Kirk Cousins expiring contract, Jaron Hall, 5th-round pick, is under contract. I think Nick Mullins, it's a low cap hit. They're probably going to say, so they basically have one guy under contract for next year with maybe the 10th or 12th pick. Michael Hacker wants to know, what would you guys do at the Vikings quarterback situation if you ran the franchise? Now, Boone said he'd bring in Russell Wilson.
Well, no, the only really big free agent will be Russ Wilson, right?
And Kirk.
For free agency, yeah. Otherwise, you're drafting one of 5 or 6 guys in the first round.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to break it down as I say it. If I'm the Vikings, I'm trying to trade up and find a young quarterback. This is why I say that. When people argue, they argue from a fan's perspective. That's my opinion. It's constantly like, oh, my God, he's fine. We'll get to the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. From a player's perspective, getting to the playoffs means absolutely nothing. Means nothing. You got there, you lost. People are just going to go, who gives a shit? Like, you want to eventually win the big game. Getting so close to the dance every year only starts to piss people off because it's like, what are we doing wrong? We're clearly close, but we're not getting over the hump. We're not getting over this fucking hump. What is it?
AKA Buffalo.
Right? There's a lot of people and everyone's like, and some fans are like, what's wrong? We're a good team. Yeah, okay, you're a good team. Congratulations. You suck. You're the 3rd worst team in the NFL. You're the 3rd best team. If you're not the number 1 team, you're nobody. And that's why as a player, you're constantly fighting to get to the top. You don't want to get to close to the top. You want to get all the way there. And when you don't get there after years of being so close, eventually it's like, okay, what's going to change? What is going to change going forward? 2 years ago, we threw a check down to lose the fucking game. What's going to change? Yeah, this year, we started like shit. And then we came back and we fought really hard. But then he got hurt. That puts another situation in my mind. He's getting older. You guys have already gotten on me about Aaron Rodgers tearing an Achilles and coming back and laughing at me. This dude's what, like 4 years younger? 5 years younger?
Yeah, Rodgers is 39-40, and Kirk is going to be 36. Yeah.
When you're 36, when you cross over the hump of 30, recovering is fucking different. I'm just telling you. Your body really slows down. It's like, I need a lot of time to do this. But at the same time, I'm wondering in the back of my mind, what's going to change? If he comes back for another year and we don't go to the Super Bowl, we don't win it, everyone's going to turn around and be like, here we are again. Another year we could have went out and got a good quarterback in the first round, developed him like the NFL system's supposed to do. You're supposed to draft players and develop them. You're not supposed to rely on free agency all the time. You're not supposed to rely on free agency for more than like one or two guys. If you're going and buying a team, it's not going to work. You cannot buy your championships. That's been said for 100 years in this league because it comes down to camaraderie. And at the same time, how do you know that $250 million investment is going to be there week 11? You don't. That's why it kind of falls on the GM in my mind always. If you go down as a quarterback and your team falls to shit, your GM should be fired. You're telling me that 360 million people in this country, you can't find a backup quarterback? I'm not even kidding you. I've thought about this because it's happened to my team. And I was literally like, wow.
Well, you're
one
12-year-old
fucking guy away. One guy away.
But dude, here's the thing. The Vikings... I think the Vikings, from ownership down to a huge chunk of the fan base, are so paralyzed by two things. The fear of turning into a garbage organization is one.
Yep.
And Christian Ponder post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yes.
I swear to God, because the Vikings whiffed on Ponder in like the 2011 draft or whatever it was. Now, I mean, you should hear the conversations I have with fans. Well, what if they draft a quarterback and he turns into Christian Ponder?
Then you're never going to win.
That's a real fear among fans and ownership.
But there are a lot of people that don't turn around in Oakland and go, well, what if he's Jamarcus Russell? Like, eventually you have to learn and move on. Hey,
what if he's Patrick Mahomes? What if he's Josh Allen? What if he's Jalen Hurts?
If you play this game too conservative and you sit back and you do the what if game and the what if, you're never going to win. And honestly, if I knew that ownership was really doing that, I'd be like, I don't want to play for these guys. Like, you got to go out there guns blazing. Like, hey, at the same time too, the things are different now. Combines run differently. People get to sit down with kids more now. You can talk to them. You can understand them. If you miss on a draft pick, it's really on you at this point. And that's why, like, when you look back 15 years at something that happened that long ago, dude, if you're really paralyzed by that to this day, you have zero chance.
I think so. I'm on the firm belief if you draft a young quarterback. Yeah. I think you see if you can bring Kirk back at the right price, because if you get drafted in the first round, you're expected to be able to contribute, right? Like that is the we drafted you to contribute if we absolutely need you to at quarterback. I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting a first round quarterback for a year. I really don't. Like Patrick Mahomes did it. He turned out to be just fine. Like, you throw some of these young quarterbacks into the wolves too early, you can ruin them. A la Bryce Young, right? Like it's possible, but you bring back a guy now. I don't think we'll get Kirk back because I think there'll be plenty of teams willing to pay him a bunch of money, like $40 million to $35 million a year. Like, I really do.
By the way, his wife's family is from they got married in Atlanta. The Falcons are an interesting one to watch.
Pittsburgh. Like, there's plenty of teams that would look at Kirk and go, yeah, we'll take him for $35 million. So I mean, if that's the number, that's not worth it. But I think there's enough good quarterbacks in this draft class that if you put yourself in a position to be in the top 10, maybe move up one or two spots to get one of those guys, you got to build with him. You got to trust your process. You got to trust you go through here. You got to build with him. You tell Josh Dobbs, hey, it was fun a couple weeks. You can go pound sand, find somewhere else to go blast off the earth.
Sold some T-shirts. It was
great. Do your thing. Like Jaron Hall, obviously. Practice squad is where you belong. You run our scout team for as long as you need to, and then we'll cut you. And then Nick Mullins, we'll keep you around for camp, see what happens, and then we'll biggity bounce. Like, I think you bring in a guy in, you sign Kirk if you can to a team friendly deal, and then eventually you have Kirk pass the reins to the new guy.
Yeah, it is funny. You guys, you ever sit down with like a financial planner and they say to you, hey, based on your age and kind of where you're at with things, how aggressive do you want to be with your investing, right? And, if you're older and you want to just make sure you're not going to lose half of your savings, and maybe you want to just be conservative, and then they'll ask you on the other side, do you want to be really aggressive? We could just put it all on like a tech startup or something. The Vikings have been around for 65 years, 63 years. They've done everything there is to do. They've won a bajillion division championships. They've went to the Super Bowl, 4 times and lost in the 70s. They've gone to NFC championship games. It's time to be aggressive with your strategy.
Absolutely.
No one cares if you win 9 games. No one, and you're not.
Nope.
And spare me they might turn into the Browns. The 20-year run. This
Don't.
is not a terribly run franchise. There's good infrastructure. So
I agree.
Be aggressive, man. Stop fearing Christian Ponder 2.0.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm not even kidding you, because one of the best advice I heard from, and surprisingly it's from BA, was he was like, dude, no risk it, no biscuit. Like, if you're not going to go out there and risk something and throw everything you have into it, what the hell do you think you're going to get? And that's kind of, to me, like, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. They teach you quickly what insanity is in football. They're like, hey, moron, see how you're beating your head against the wall and you're doing it wrong? This is why everyone thinks you're insane, because you're an idiot. I know.
What?
Awesome. I'm still doing it, coach. You told me to.